this young quarterback is not having the best start to his career with the Green Bay Packer Cheeseheads, it's Mr. Jordan Love. The Packers have lost 4 straight. Love has 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions in those 4 losses. And this question is Jordan Love a bust? And my answer to that is a hard N-O. And I think that anybody labeling Jordan Love this quick into the year is completely ignoring the surrounding parts in the situation around Jordan Love. Jordan Love has been far from perfect. He's made his fair share of mistakes. There are stats that show those mistakes, but there are also stats that show everything around him not working how it should be working. Versus the Vikings, I thought Jordan Love played a good game. The same way how versus Denver, I thought he played a good game. Kurt Warner seemed to agree with me. Hall of Fame quarterback, we think alike, and it's evident. The Packers' issues this year, 28th ranked wide receiver room according to PFF, 28th in run blocking. The coaching is an issue. The points in the first half, the last 5 games, have been 3-0-3-3-0. They're 27th in rushing yards. A.J. Dillon leads this team at 38 rushing yards per game. Jordan Love is at 23.4, and he leads the team in big-time runs. Jordan Love has the most explosive runs for this team. We're talking about a Packers team that can't run the ball. They can't block for the run, and this is a young group of receivers that I was expecting to be better, but a lot of them have been underwhelming. Jaden Reed has been underwhelming. Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson has been the most underwhelming.
Romeo Doubs, I wouldn't say has been underwhelming.
He
depends on your expectations of him.
The problem with all these receivers is that, and this was a problem with them coming into the NFL, they all had a drop problem. They all had a high drop rate, and now it's catching up to them in the NFL. What I think determines bad quarterback play are turnovers, accuracy, and sacks. Those are 3 measurables that you can measure across different situations. Jordan Love this year has 8 turnover-worthy plays. That ranks 17th. But the percentages on those dropbacks matter. He's 20th in turnover-worthy play percentage at 2.8%. That ranks 20th. So that right there shows me, even though the turnover numbers may be high, there's some that are not his mistake, that are not his fault. And he's, for the most part, not a turnover-prone quarterback if he's ranking 17th and respectfully 20th in turnover-worthy plays and percentage. He has the 3rd highest drop rate in the NFL at 8.8%. He has taken the 23rd most sacks, which means he's not taking sacks, his receivers are dropping balls, and he's not turning the ball over as much as people think he is. And his time to throw ranks 19th at 2.76 seconds. The longer a quarterback holds on to the ball means that they're not reading the field well. I think Jordan Love reads the field average, and he has a 9.7 dot, which is 2nd in the NFL. So he's dropping back a lot. He's making deep passes down the field, although they haven't been accurate. But I think the last 2 weeks it's been more of a wide receiver problem with the accuracy issues down the field than it has been him. And he's not in big-time throws, which is 19th in big-time throw percentage according to PFF. So this information tells me he's not turnover prone, as his raw stats suggest. His wide receivers are dropping passes. Versus the Vikings, I'm not going to lie to you. I have videos of all the plays where it happened. 6 to 8 drops. 6 to 8 drops from receivers. And not a lot of them happened in the second half. A lot of them were in the first half. And I will say, out of those 8 drops, Jordan Love, 4 of them could have been way better balls. The other ones were 100% on the wide receiver.
So half.
Half of them, yeah. Mm-hmm. But even though they weren't, it could have been a better ball. If you're a receiver, you make that catch. You know, Romeo Doubs had a catch down the sideline where Jordan Love put it on him, and if Romeo Doubs is a half a second faster, or if he stretches out for it, it's a catch. The interception that Josh Metellus had, it wasn't the most accurate pass, but you look at the replay, Jordan Love gave Jaden Reed a chance. The ball was on Jaden Reed's hands, and Metellus rips it from him, and that's an interception. Mm-hmm. That's not a Jordan Love problem to me. The bad with him is that he's 33rd in adjusted completion percentage at 66.4%. The footwork can be messy. He tends to be a little bit more panicky than I expected, and that's making a lot of things tougher for him. A prime example of that is if you watch the Broncos game last week, touchdown to Romeo Doubs. He should have led him to the back of the end zone. He kind of put it a little bit early on him, and Surtain had a chance to pick it off, but Romeo Doubs saved that interception.
Big broed it.
That's one of those instances where Jordan Love made things harder than they should have been. But the question I pose is that, how much are we really going to judge Jordan Love, giving him a statement as grand as he's a bust, when this is his first year as a starter? Although he sat, reps matter. He hasn't been horrible. He's been average. And Aaron Rodgers last year had a down season. Everybody thought Aaron Rodgers was done after winning back-to-back MVPs. This Packers team had a ton of issues. Aaron Rodgers couldn't even succeed with this team last year. How harsh are we going to be for Jordan Love when the situation is even worse than it was last year? And Jordan Love probably doesn't have the freedom to change things at the line of scrimmage like Aaron Rodgers had when he was there. Aaron Rodgers, all of last year, he blasted Matt LaFleur all year long. The play calling sucked. The plays suck. These plays suck. He's blasted him. I've seen Jordan Love in the first half versus the second half. The first half, I think the game plan for the Packers is all out of whack. The timing of the routes is horrible. In the second half, they play much more free. And Jordan Love, when he's in rhythm, he's making good plays. He looks like a good quarterback. It's just hard for me to judge Jordan Love when there's no receiver on this team that's a standout. He doesn't have any elite weapon. He doesn't have any running game. There's nothing around him that you can say, oh, Jordan Love can rely on him. You're talking about the youngest group of receivers in league history, so there's a ton of communication issues, and on top of that, they're dropping the ball at the third highest rate in the NFL. So for me, Jordan Love is not a bust. If you think he's not the future of the Packers, I have no issue with that. I don't think Jordan Love has made anybody believe that he is the future, but I think just labeling him flat right as not good, I think is disingenuous because he's in a horrible situation that I think almost, if not every starting quarterback that aren't the elite guys would struggle in this situation.
The story with Jordan Love is a tale of two halves. In the first half, he's second to last in EPA per play, and success rate, he is dead last. In completion percentage, he's second to last. In the second half, he's number 2 in EPA, only behind Josh Allen, and 5th in success rate. Now, it's funny because as you watch the games, you get that feel of first half. The perfect example would be that Detroit Lions game. He was abysmal in that first half. The Green Bay Packers didn't even look like they had any business being on the field. Second half, he strings together some nice drives, has some really nice throws. And, of course, they don't get the result they wanted, but at least he was and had put together a respectable night by the end of the game. And the numbers tell it how it is. But in the grand scheme of things, 23rd in success rate and 18th in EPA per play. And I think that goes exactly hand in hand with what Joel's saying. Because, again, I wouldn't label him as terrible, as this horrible quarterback. But he's definitely not good. I would not classify him as a good quarterback. For him to be the future of the Packers, it's possible because they aren't allocating a ton of money to him. He is brought on for next year at least, so you can realize, which they haven't prior to the last couple of seasons, where they have brought in young guys, but they haven't been aggressive in free agency. Even when Rodgers was there, they weren't aggressive in free agency to bring weapons outside of them. They did give Aaron Jones that extension, but off this season where we've seen Aaron Jones be great and we've given him that acknowledgement of being one of the more underappreciated running backs in the game because of how versatile he is. This season he's been unreliable because of that hamstring injury, and we kind of feel like the training wheels are on him. And I say training more like safety wheels because they're trying to be careful with Aaron Jones. But again, they don't have any true weapon. We thought that would be Christian Watson, but that hasn't been the case yet. This is a very young group. We're talking about the youngest wide receiver group in the National Football League. And yeah, being in the league for 4 years and this is your result right now isn't great. But in your first full year starting, you're putting this forward. It could be a lot worse. He could have played like Zach Wilson did last season, right? He could have played like Russell did last season, but he's been very, very average. In the first half, he's not been average, but by the end of the game, he gets to around average. So again, I don't feel great about Jordan Love right now. I feel very firmly he's not bad, but he's not good. And that's a weird fine line, but that's the truth.
I would be pretty surprised if Jordan Love is the franchise quarterback for this team.
For sure.
Coming into the season, I didn't think he was going to faceplant, right? I didn't think he was going to be, like you mentioned, Zach Wilson level bad. But I also didn't see him becoming this like top 10, have this breakout season. Part of that is just, you look at the weapons around him. It's going to be hard to have an insane season. It's such a young unit. They've had some injuries too. But right now, you look at the offensive line, they're second in pass block win rate. So the offensive line, at least in the passing jobs, been doing the job. Rushing, to your point, they haven't been great. Big part of that, though, is Aaron Jones. We know what A.J. Dillon is. A.J. Dillon is a complimentary back at best. Aaron Jones is the guy that, when he's healthy, he's their most explosive weapon, right up there with Christian Watson. But Aaron Jones, his hamstring has not been right since week 1. He's tried sitting, coming back, sitting again, and he's still on limited carries, limited snap counts, that is. But I feel like when you look at young quarterbacks around the league, there's just some players that you have to convince yourself that are franchise quarterbacks, and there's some players that you don't. Like, I feel like very early on, we saw C.J. Stroud. We're like, listen, he's balling out, right? The offensive line was banged up. We didn't think the weapons are right. The coaching staff, first-time head coach, OC, all of this. Same thing with Bryce Young, where the coaching staff is veterans, but you look at the weapons. Adam Thielen is the wide receiver 1. Coming into the year, I thought he was completely and utterly washed. I did not think Adam Thielen was, at best, a wide receiver 3, and he's having a bit of a resurgence down there in Carolina. He would be the best receiver on
the Packers.
And he's been phenomenal this year. But even still, he hasn't had a running game. Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders have been pretty disappointing. And then outside of that, you got Terrace Marshall and Tommy Treble. There's no weapons there, too. And even Anthony Richardson's handful of games before he got injured. Jonathan Taylor's not there. It's the Zach Moss show. Then you got Pittman. Josh Downs turns into a really nice piece. Alec Pierce is disappointed. But I'm looking at other young quarterbacks around the league impressing me with very little around them, with either not injuries, but lack of talent at the offensive line or wide receivers or first-time play callers. So I think when you have to convince yourself that a guy's a franchise quarterback, most of the time you're wrong. There are some outliers. Tua is a great example. Jalen Hurts is a great example, where it took them a few years, but eventually they got there and they became that franchise quarterback. But more likely than not, if it takes if you don't really see it right away and you see them struggling, and some of this stuff is just, JT O'Sullivan pointed this out in his QB school, where Jordan Love just makes things harder for himself, where he'll have a clean pocket and then he'll just step up and have to do this weird arm angle and do this kind of this just unnatural movement in the pocket where he's putting himself in worse positions than he has to be. Now, some of that stuff can be coached out. Some of that's probably just sitting on the bench for multiple years. But right now, I don't love what I'm seeing from Jordan Love. No pun intended. I don't see the special. I don't see the eye-popping throws that was kind of hyped up for him as a prospect.
He definitely has made some, though.
He's made a handful, like the sidearm throw that got bounced off maybe Dobbs and
that was a drop by Dobbs, and just lucky it landed on Reed's.
It hasn't been exactly. It hasn't been enough.
Listen. Joel, I know you're a Jordan guy. You're a Jordan Love guy. You love this guy. You've been hyping him up since.
You were a Jordan Love guy too, bro.
I believed him to a degree. Not for all 5 years. Probably just last summer.
Got it.
And I think the difference between him and young guys like C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, or rookies. They're fresh rookies coming in. They kind of have a bit of a security in the sense of they're going to give him a year or two. With Jordan Love, the unfortunate part is he had to wait behind the Hall of Fame quarterback, which is obvious most guys would. But he doesn't get the same timeline as an AR, as a C.J. Stroud. Even a Jalen Hurts or a Justin Herbert. He doesn't get the same timeline as those other guys. And Dehls mentioned it. You kind of seen it with certain guys. You've seen it with Justin Herbert. You've seen it when Pat Mahomes first stepped on the field. Certain guys just have it. And even sometimes you get the rare guys like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts when they develop it, And I think with Jordan Love, it's tough because this year was kind of his one, I don't want to say his one chance, but probably his one chance with Green Bay in a sense of, all right, you've been sitting on the bench, show us what you've learned. And to your credit, he has shown you sometimes, he's shown you the special, but it hasn't been on a consistent basis. And you expected this Green Bay team to be much better. And it's not just on him. This offense has been banged up all year. They just signed Rashawn Gary, obviously to an extension, so shout out to him, Jersey, of course. But this offense has been banged up, so Jordan Love hasn't even begun to build that chemistry up with this offense. And last year, the problem was Aaron Rodgers didn't have that same chemistry with this offense. They started the year, they was dropping passes. If Aaron Rodgers couldn't do it, you're going to think, well, how can Jordan Love do it? But you still expected him to be somewhat better in a year where he kind of had to prove it because the clock is ticking for him with the team like Green Bay Packers.